Hello everyone, welcome to another session of the Analytics Bootcamp. So in today's session, we're going to be talking about SQL and which we all know as Structured Query Language. So what are the things we're going to be talking about? What is SQL and how can SQL be used and how does it work? And before we go into SQL and how, first of all, we have to understand what a database is and what is the interaction between SQL and a database. Now that takes us to database. So what is a database? A database is an organized collection of data that can be easily accessed, managed, and updated. Databases are used to store various types of information, ranging from simple text, numbers to complex data such as images and videos. So a database is just the place where your data is being stored for future use, purpose, or reference. So an example is this: we have different type of databases that a lot of people use. For example, some companies use Excel as their storage system, as their own database where they store data. And actually, what really determines what type of database you use is the volume of your data that you deal with day in, day out in the organization or company. So, for example, for a supermarket, a small supermarket now, an Excel sheet is actually enough for them to store their data. So they use it as a database. While for a big company, they have to go for a higher DPMS for them to store their works for their data. So that's that. They are essentially in various applications. So for example, now when you go online to get something or you go to an application or website, every application or website actually have a database in it. So when you're interacting with that particular database, with that particular website or app, it's actually collecting your data and storing it in a database. So when you go online to buy stuff in an e-commerce website, when you first of all get it the first time, it's going to get your information as your customer and store your information in the customer database. So when you go to buy stuff, it collects your information as like it sales information, what you bought and stuff like that. It store it there. So same thing as a website. So when you go to a website, interactive website, they collect your data and store in a database. So they are essential in various applications, including business operations, scientific research, and personal data management. Now, what are the main types of database that we have? So database can be categorized based on different criteria, such as data model, usage, and structure. Now, we're going to be looking at types of data majorly based on the data structure and model. So what are the two main types of database? We have the relational database, also known as the RDBMS, and the non-relational database. So what are the difference between relational database and the non-relational database? Now, a relational database, this database uses, this database use a table-based structure to organize data into rows and columns. Now, a relational database is the type of database whereby the information in the database or a table is arranged in what in rows and columns in a structured way. An example of that is in our Excel sheet. You know, the information we store in our Excel sheet is what is arranged in rows and columns. So when an information is arranged in rows and columns, we call them a relational database, and they utilize SQL for data manipulation. So they are the types of database that utilize SQL for data manipulation. Now that's why they call it structured query language. Now it is the language that you can use for only what RDBMS, relational database, to interact with relational database, not all database. Now example of all these DBMS systems are the we have MySQL, we have the Postgres, we have the Oracle, we have the SQL Server. And this type of database are actually used for transactional information. Financial system like banks, they use it like to store your data in rows and columns, and inventory systems. Now, this is a very good example of a relational database. Now, we have uh, two tables here for this particular database. The first table is the student table, and the second table is the department table. And why is this called a relational database? You can see the way the table is arranged. The table is arranged in rows and columns. They arrange the rows and columns, and the tables tend to interact with each other. So that's actually the main part of relational database. It's a situation whereby a table within a database interact with each other. So the student database has three fields or three columns, which are the student ID, the student name, and the department number, and it's arranged in rows and column in this way. Also, we have the department table. Also, we have the department number and department name. Now, the two tables can interact with each other using the department number. So that's an example of interactive. So when I'm trying to like work we need the information that pertains to the department and the name of the student. I can easily just work with these two tables simultaneously by relating each other using the department number. So this is an example of a relational or table, database table. Now we have the non-relational. Now non-relational, these databases are designed for more flexible data storage compared to relational database. So an example of data that we can find in this type of database are JSON and XML. So we have different types of non-relational database. We have the document-based. We have the key value, which is an example for a JSON format, a key value. We have the column family, and we have the graph. So these are different types of non-relational database that we have. An example of this is this. This is an example of the way non-relational database stores data. You can see the table is not arranged in rows and columns. It's not in a structured way. For example, this is an example of a key pair types of database whereby you have the key and you have the value that corresponds to it. And this is the way it stores data. So now let's go back to what are the key concepts in database. So there are some key concepts you have to understand in database before you can actually interact with them. So the first thing is the data. And we all know what data is. These are raw facts and figures and that are stored in the database. So without data, there won't be any database. So the whole essence of the database is just for us to store our data set. So that's data. The next one is the DBMS, which are the different database management system. So the software that interact with the database, allowing users to perform operations such as data insertion, deletion, updating, and query. So an example of an RDBMS are the MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, and what's the SQL Server. Those are an example of RDBMS. These are software created. You can see that. And one thing about all these things is that different company has their own product. So for SQL Server now, it is owned by Microsoft. Postgres has its own thing. We have the Oracle and we have MySQL. So depending on what the company decides to use, and uh, and that's all. So the next thing is the schema. The schema is the structure of the database that defines how data is organized and how the relationship among data are associated. So this is an example of a schema. We talked about this now. So, for example, if I'm trying to create a database for a school now, so I have to create a table, the different tables that I'm going to populate in the database and how the tables interact with each other. So that's what we call a schema. So different tables, different structure of the tables, and how these things interact with each other. It's called schema. Now, a query is a request for data or information from a database, usually executed using a query language like SQL. So when you try to query, you're trying to call out information or make a request to the database. It's like you're sending an information to the database by writing your query. And the database is going to get your information, process it, and send it back, give you a response in terms of your results. So the best query language for relational database is known as a structured query language. This is what we are going to be talking about later on. So structured query language, how you can write your query and to get information from the database. And the table is a collection of related entries and it contains of rows and columns. So this is rows and columns. So we have a record. A record is a single row in a table representing a single data item. Then the last one, a field. A field is also known as a column. So call it column or a field. A single column in a table representing the specific attributes of a data item. So you can call it a column, you can call it a field, or you can call it an attribute. So this is a very good example of this. So this is a table in a database. It's a table, and these are the fields that we have there. We have the student ID, the first name, the surname, and the date of birth. Now the row is just a single observation for a particular student, like a single observation for a student. For example, a particular student ID 6473 has a name, first name Philip, surname Barker, and the date of birth. So that's a row. So row signifies a single observation. And we have the feed, we have the feed name, we have data item. Data items have different values within the database, within the, yeah. Then we have the key feed. Key feed. Key feeds is just like we call it like a primary key or foreign key. These are the key that different tables use to interact with each other. So when you create a table, there will be key feed there. The key feed is a column that the table is going to use to interact with what the other table. An example of that is what we see in this table here. For example, in this student and department table. Now, the key field here is the department number, and this is what they use to interact with each other when you try to make a call or you try to make a request using SQL. Now, we've talked about types of database and the key concept of database. Now, let's talk about what are the DBA associations. What are the operations carried out on the database day in, day out? So the operations carried out on the database is actually called the CRUD. That's like acronym of it called the CRUD. And it is the meaning is create, read, update, and delete. So these are the major operation carried on the database. You create a database. Is either you create a database, or you read a database, or you update a database, or you delete a database. These are the things that you carry out with it. So it's create, read, and update. These are the four basic operations that are performed on a database using a database management system. Now let's take it one after the other. So a create is when you create a database that is going to store information. So this is done in every business. That's the first thing to do. When you're creating your application, setting up your application or your website or anything like that, you have to create a place where your data is going to be stored. And that's known as what creating of tables within your database or your application, stuff like that. So you create that. Although our major focus is not on create, but we are still going to look at like a simple codes on how to create a table within a database because it's very, very good for you to have an idea of that. Now the update. Update is when you're trying to like change information within a database. You're trying to update the information within the database. Let's take for example now. When you open up your account, let's say in the bank settings now, when you open up your account in a bank, you get your informations and they get your account information like your balance and stuff like that. So let's say for example, when you open the account for the first time, you deposited 50,000 US dollars in your account or 50,000 naira. Let's take naira for example now. Now, uh, when you deposit that, yeah, your information is saved in the database. Like, okay, this is this now. So, but let's say in a day you wanted to like you needed some money, so you went to the ATM to withdraw some money from it. So you try to withdraw 20,000 from your money. So when you withdraw that 20,000 naira, an information is going to is going to be like sent to the database to update your information that you've carried the transaction. So to change your balance from what from 50,000 to now 30,000 because you withdraw what uh 20,000. So that's an example of an update. And this happens day in, day out when you tend to like interact with database. And you don't know, when you tend to use your ATM to withdraw some money, you are interacting with database. And what is going on within that database, it kind of like updates. You see, sometimes they say that I've not gotten an alert, they've not debited me, the database has not been updated or stuff like that. So that's an update. And sorry, before I go to the read is just like a query, try to call the information from database. And this is what we do the most as a data analyst. What we do the most is just to call the data. We read the data out, we query the data just for us to work with it. That's our major focus for this uh session, read data sets, and that's what we're going to be using SQL for the most. And the last part is the delete, when you try to delete your database. This is rare and it happens sometimes. We have to be very careful deleting a database because it can be a major disaster. So these are the four basic operations that are performed on a database using a database management system. Now, which is the read now, which is the major focus of this session. Now, a request for a data or information from a database usually executed using a query language like SQL. So for you to be able to call or read information from your database, you have to relate to the database using a language that you understand. And the language that the relational database understood is what is a structured query language. That is why it is very, very, very important. Now, to work with your data set, you have to call out the data set from where it is stored for you to be able to analyze it or do anything like that. And the only language that the database understands is SQL. So that's why you need to understand SQL to able to call your data, manipulate your data, clean your data within the database. So that takes us to the SQL, which is known as well structured query language. Now, and a simple query can be like, okay, select column A, column B from my table where this is equal to this. That's just like a simple SQL query. Okay, now, so for those that are actually into Postgres or probably being the first time using Postgres, so I actually want to show us how we can set up our Postgres for the first time. So after installing your Postgres and everything well installed, now to launch in your Postgres, you have to just type into your search bar area the pg admin. then you're going to see the PG 4. So you click on the PG 4 for it to launch. Then it's going to launch. So when the PG 4 launch, it might take like some few minutes. Then we are going to get this interface like this, like PG and everything like that. So the next thing for you to do is just come to the server area, like, and then to expand this server. So when you click on it, automatically for the first time, it's going to like prompt you to enter your password. These are the password you supply in when you're trying to like install your Postgres. So you have to type in your password. So when you type in your password, automatically it's going to show something like this. And you have Postgres 14 or 15, depending on your version of Postgres. And if you try to expand the database, you will get some, you only have Postgres. You only see this Postgres there. The reason I'm having so many ones here is because I've actually have some database that I actually created before. That's why I'm having all this. So for you can only see Postgres as your database. Now to create an empty database for you to populate with table, just like I did for Dyna. So we just have to like click on this and click on create. So click on create, right click on database, select create, and put in the name of the database you want to create there. So I can just put in Dynas or something, or Dynas 2 or something like that. So after doing that, then you click on save, then you have your database created. So to now populate it, you just have to like type in, select the database you want to populate with the tables and click on the query tool. Then you can now write your query, your create table here. Just so now the next thing is to do is to create a table in my Dyna's database. But before we start creating a table, let me give you a overview of what Dyna database is all about. So Dyna database is a database for restaurants, and it contains information such as the sales information, the menu, and the members information of that particular restaurant. Now to create that table now, so what I need to do now is just select the database, which is the Dyna database. So after selecting the Dyna database, I go to the query tool up here. You can see select the query tool. So this query tool is going to open up an interface for me to write my query or my code to create a table inside that database. So now I already have some codes that I copy already that I wanted to like paste here just to uh I'm going to paste it now. So these are the information that we have. And I said this Dyna contains three tables, which is the sale, the menu, and the members information. So now to create the sales information, the sales table rather. Now what we need to do in SQL to create any table within SQL or within a database, any database, the first thing you need to start with is create table. So that's the first function. So create table. So after writing the create table, what comes next is the name of the table you're trying to create. So the name of the table that you're trying to create. So you open up your parentheses and describe the columns that is going to be inside that table. So you have to describe the columns that you want inside a particular table. So for this sales table now, so the information that we want, the column that we want there is a customer ID, the order date, and the product ID. So after defining the name of the column, so the next thing you have to do also is the data type of individual column. So after the name of the column, what comes in front of them is the data type. For example, now for this customer ID now, the data type that I want for is varchar, which is also a variable character. So varchar, and it is of length 1. So the length of the data that is going to be stored on this customer ID also is what comes inside this bracket that we have in front of varchar. So it's a variable character. What is the length of the variable character is like 2 or 3 or 4. So you can just take it there. But for this one, it's just 1. And the next one that comes in is the order date. Order date. And after the order date, what is the data type of the order date? Is still date, just like we have it there. And the next one is the product ID. Product ID. So what is the data type of product ID? It's going to be an integer. So that's what we have here. So you can see that after the customer, the column name, the next thing is the variable, sorry, the data type is separated by a comma. And this is just the schema of the sales table. Now, after you created the schema and define columns and the table name, stuff like that, then you have to populate it with some data. So to populate your table, you have to use the insert function. You understand that? So you have to use the insert function. So the function says insert into sales. That is, insert this information into sales. And you have to state the order at which you want to insert your information. Like, for example, now, what information is coming first is the customer ID followed by the order date and the product ID. So you have to follow this order when you are inserting your information. The order at which you want you state you state here like a customer ID first, order date first, then product ID. So after insert into sales, you define the column you want to insert to, then the values. Started like writing out the values. Then you have the values like this. You can see A is the customer ID for the first one, then followed by the other date, followed by the product ID for everyone like that. So that is why you populate the table. And same thing goes for the menu table also. You say create table, the name of the table, the columns, you have to define the columns within the table and the data type of the columns within the table. That's why we have the product ID. It's going to be an integer. The product name, variable character, voucher, and the length of it is 5. Then we have price, which is also what? Integer. Now the next one is menu. So is the next one is not populating the menu table. So insert into menu the order at which you want to insert your information in terms of the column name, then you insert the value that you want to put there. So the last table is the member table. We have the customer table, sorry, customer ID and join dates. Then you populate your data. So that is how you create a table within a database. So I believe you understand this. Actually, this is not the major focus. We have dealt into it in details, but I believe you understand. You have the basic understanding of how to create a table within a database. Although your work is not to create a table, as a data analyst, your work is just to retrieve the information from the database. But this is very, very good just for you to have an idea of how the table is being created within a database. So now, after writing the code for my table, for creating the table, so the next is for me is just to run them. And it's going to populate the table within the Dynamo database. So for me to run it, just click on it and click on this execute option here, or just select F5. You can see this thing that looks like a play button. So run it. And when I run it, you can see query returned successfully. That he has actually run the query and he has created the table. You can see query returned successfully. So now, for us to know whether the table has been created, now we just have to go to Dynas table and check. So under the Dynas database, so I just come to the schema here. So from the schema, I go to tables. Uh, we don't have anything here yet. So let's try to refresh to see how. So okay, so let's check it again. Then we have our table. So this has been populated now. So we have the members, we have the menu, and we have the sales table. So with this table now, we can start writing some query to manipulate the table, which is going to lead us to the basic SQL query. Now extract or retrieve information from a particular database. And to retrieve and manipulate information in a table within a database. And as a data analyst, that's actually what we focus on. We tend to like retrieve information and manipulate information just to make some insightful decision. So how do we retrieve information in a table within a database in Postgres? So the first thing we need to do now is this. I have to create a new interface for me to write my queries. So I'm going to select the database I'm to work with, which is the Dyna. Then go to the query tool here, just to open the interface for me to write my queries. And the queries we are going to be talking about now is some basic SQL queries. And like I have here, those are the queries that we have here. We have the select, we have the limit, we have the where, we have the comparison and logical and many more like that. So these basic queries are SQL queries are used to like extract information, be it a particular column or a particular row within within a table in a database. So that is what all these things are used for. So the first and the most important syntax we are going to be looking at is the select. So for you to do anything as a data analyst within a database, you have to use select. So you select is used for calling information from a table within a database. So okay, retrieve this particular information from this table and this table. So that's what we use the select statement for. And let's see how that one works in practical. So the first thing I need to do now is after creating my interface to write my queries, I can just comment out this place just to type in some basic queries. To write a comment, you just have to use double hyphen and you type in your comments like that. So basic SQL queries. So after doing that, so the syntax I want to talk about now is the select statement. So that's the first thing. And like I said earlier, it's used for extracting information or retrieving information from a table within a database. So select statement. So now let's see how this select statements, let's see how it works in Postgres. So for example, now let's say like I have already created in the Dynas database. So I have some tables like sales tables, menu table, and what's the last one? Member table. So if I wanted to call all the information from a particular table, then I can use that. I can do that using the select statement. So how do that work? So let me just zoom in this thing a bit. So to do that, I just have to come in here and say select. So select is the first thing you have to write to call any information from a table. Select. So what comes next now is majority of time is asterisk. So what asterisk does is this. Asterisk is going to return all the rows and all the columns you have in a particular table. So it's going to return all the rows and columns that you have in a particular table. So select asterisk, that is all the rows and columns from the table you want to extract the information from, sales. So what this one is going to do now, if I run it by selecting it and just clicking and selecting this play button that you have here, use F5. So run it. This one is going to return all the information that we have in the sales table. You can see it has returned all the column, which is the customer ID, order date, and product ID, and all the rows that we have there. We only have 15 rows there, and it has returned everything. So that is how the select statement works. Now, another case of this thing is this. So if I don't want to return all the columns in a particular table, probably I want to like return a specific columns. In this case, let's say I want to return only the customer ID and the order date. You can do that by just stating the name of the column in place of the asterisk. So in that case, you're going to select. So this thing is not case sensitive. You can either put capital or small letter. So it's not case sensitive. So select customer ID, comma, order date from sales. So when you are stating the name of the columns, you have to separate the columns you are calling. If it's more than one, you have to separate them by comma. So select customer ID, comma, order date from sales table. So if I run this now, this one is going to return only the word specified column and all the rows. Only the specified column and all the rows within that particular table. You can see we have this here now. There are 15 rows and only return the word, the customer ID and the order date. So same goes for the other tables that we have within the database. Let's say I want to return all the values in the menu table. So I can just use select asterisk from menu. So this one is going to return all the rows and columns in the what in the menu table. So let's just do that to see how that works. Okay, you can see now it has returned all the what all the rows and the columns. We only have 3 columns within this menu table. And for that now I can just say, okay, I only want to see the product name and the price. I don't want to see the product ID. That's what I need, depending on the type of analysis you are doing or the type of manipulation you want to do. So in that case, select product name, comma, price from menu. So if I run this now and go to this thing, so this one is going to like return the what only the product name and product. So that is how you can extract all the columns or specific columns within a table in a database. So the next thing we want to talk about now is the rules. Imagine when we are stating a particular column, it's still returning all the rules. So what if I don't want to return all the rows? If I wanted to return only a particular number of rows, I can do that within this SQL queries. And what I'm going to this clause I'm going to use for that is the limit. So the first one is the limit. So I'm going to use the limit. Limit is used to specify the number of rows you want it to return. So it's used to specify the number of rows you want it to return in a Postgres. So in this case now, let's take one of these query that we have here. For example, let's say this select star from sales, which is you notice that the sales has 15 rows in it. So if I want to return only 5 rows within the sales table, I don't want to return all the rows. So in this case, I still want to return all the columns, which is the asterisk. But in this case, I want to like specify the number of rows for it to return. So I'm going to use limits. So after I select asterisk from sales, limits, then you put the number of rows you want to return. 5. I only want to return 5 rows. So in that case, if I run this now, and I go to 7, You can say this is going to return only what only five rows for me from the sales table. So that is what limit is used for, to specify the number of rows you want to return. And you can also do that for the probably you want to specify the number of columns and specify the number of rows to what to return, or the name of the column and the number of rows to return. So that can also work. So in this case, I can just let me copy this one, which is the one I've actually written here before. And so for this now, I can just put in return only, let's say limit 6, 6 rows. So if I check my this thing, I can see it's returning 6 rows for me. So that is how you actually limit your rows and column within what within a database. So once you extract the column, you know you can use a step to extract all the column or specify the name of the columns you want to extract, and use limit to like specify the name of the rows. So the next thing I want to do that is this. So the next function that we have here is the where clause. What does the where clause mean? Unlike the limit is just to extract the number of rows that you want. Now, for where clause now, where clause is used to return the rows that match a particular pattern or a particular criteria that you are to a particular criteria that you want to state here now. So it's just like a filter. Remember when we are doing filter in Excel? Okay, filter this when this particular column is equal to this. So when this particular column uh is equal to 2, return all the columns. When the particular column is return this, return this. So when you wanted to filter a row based on a criteria or a condition, then you can use the where clause to do that. So in this case now, I have customer ID. The first one was I have different customer ID here. So when I run this, so I have different customer ID. I have customer ID A, B, C, D. So in this case, now let's say I only want to return information for customer ID A. So in that case, I'm not going to use a limit to return the row. I'm going to use the where clause because I have a condition, I have a criteria I want to return. I have a criteria I want to return from the table. So in this case, I'm going to use the what? A where clause. So that will be select step it from sales. In this case, now be where customer ID is equal to, you put it in quotes, A, because it's in text. Where customer ID, so I think I got this thing wrong here. It should be customer. So where customer ID is equal to what? Is equal to A. So what this one is going to do now is going to return only the rows where the customer ID is equal to what? Is equal to A. But still going to return all the columns. You can see now. It's returning only the what? Only the rows where the customer ID is equal to A. So that is where we use the where clause for. So you can put any condition that you want to do in the where clause. And your condition might not be only on the customer ID. It can be on order date, it can be on product ID. I might say, okay, when the product ID is equal to 1. So we can try that also. Select all the sales where the product ID is equal to what? Equal to 1. So that can also work. So let me just change this thing. So I run this using F5. Okay. Okay, it's a mistake here. 1 is equal to, we say 1, let's put 1 there. So, okay, okay. I'm trying to return this. Okay, when product ID is equal to 1. So to do that now, after selecting all the columns, press 1. And you can see now it's returning uh the sales information where the product ID is equal to what? Is equal to 1. So that is how this works. That's where filter clause works. That's good. So the next thing we want to talk about now after the vehicle, so we look at the select statement, and you can see that select statement is used for everything. So whenever you want to retrieve information within a table, within a database, you have to use select statements. Select statement is very, very important for everything. So the next thing we want to do now is SQL comparison information. And actually we've done that with the vehicles. One of the comparison operators that we use is equals to greater than, less than. So I can also change this one now to do that. Okay, where the product ID is greater than, let's say, 1. So when I say when the product ID is greater than 1, it's only going to return what's it called for me? Product ID 2 and 3 to do that. So if I run this, you can see now it's only returning product ID but 2 and 3 for me. So that is the comparison operator. It can be greater than, it can be less than, it can be equals to, not equals to, no matter, like, depending on the type of condition you want to, like, it to, like. Now, the other operator we want to talk about now is the logical operator. So we talk about the comparison operator, like I said earlier, is equal to, greater than, less than, not equals to, and everything like that. So those are the logical operators, and you can put them there depending on the type of condition you're trying to create here. So the next one is the logical operators. Logical operators are the and, or, that we normally see, talk about those ones when we're talking about Excel, when we are dealing with Excel. We have the and we have the what, and we have the or. So how does these logical operators come in this type of case now? So for example, now let's say I wanted to, like, put in a condition on 2 columns. So when the customer ID is equal to probably A and product ID is equal to 2, that's what I want to see. See, that is an example of a logical operator. So in case now I wanted to filter have the rules where the customer ID is equal to A and the product ID is equal to what? Is equal to 2. Then I can use the logical operator for that. So to do that, it's going to be select steric from, now the first one is from sales, where, so we use the logical operator with the where clause. So where the customer ID is equal to, let's say, A, and then you put the and function, and product ID is equal to 2. So if I run this now, you can see the logical operator that we have here is and. And one thing about this logical operator now, for when you are using and, the two condition must be true before the result comes out, or before the result is true. So this condition must be true for it to return something out here. So to do that, let's just run this now. And you can see, so this is the only condition whereby the customer ID is equal to A and the product ID is equal to what? Is equal to 2. So that's one example of what, of logical operators. And you can combine different columns. It might be maybe other dates, maybe customer ID, my product ID. You can combine as many columns as you want for this type of what condition in SQL. So another thing I want to talk about now is the or. We have the or. Or and are quite different. For or, if one of the condition is true, then it's going to return your result. But for and, the two conditions must be true before it can return anything for you. So in this case, now the customer ID must be equal to A and the product ID must be equal to 2 before it can return anything. But for or, if one of the conditions is actually true, then it's going to return us, give us something. So an example of this is that, see, I can say select asterisk from sales where customer ID equals to B. And so or, this is or now, or product ID is equal to 2. So if I run this now, so what this one is doing is this, is checking the rules where this condition is, where this condition, maybe where the customer ID is not B, but the product ID is 2, is going to return it. So when the product ID, uh, customer ID is B, but the product ID is not to return it like that. So when the two condition is what is being met, then it returns the what, returns the output. And that is what we get for this one. And this is an example of a logical operators that we have. And we use logical operators and all these comparison operators with the where clause. Because majorly what we use them to do is just to filter the rule that met a particular criteria or a particular condition. So you can do that in real life. Okay, I'm trying to look for sales that is greater than 200. Who are the ones that make the make a sales that is greater than 200,000? Or who are the sales rep that make a sales that is greater than 300,000? So you wanted to filter out the rules, you can do that. Or okay, what's that sales for the what's that sales for region A, what's that sales for region B. So you can use the where clause to just to filter out uh your value based on your condition or your criteria that you have in a column. Now, for example, now probably I'm trying to like filter out for a particular name, and I don't really know the name now. I can use the like to just search for the pattern by stating the part of it, and SQL is going to like do the rest of it for me. So we actually use that with wildcard, when we call it wildcard or something like that. So now, for example, now let's me use menu. For example, now we have the menu table. So let's say select. Let's work with menu this time. Star from menu. You can see we have this thing. Now let's say for example now someone wants to order one of our products now, but he doesn't really know the name of the product, but he knows that the name of the product starts with what? With S. So we can use like to search for the pattern that the person is looking for from the menu. So in this case, now I can say select asterisk from we also use the we use the like operator with the where clause from menu where like where like so where product name like. Then now to us to state the pattern here now, we notice that the product we want to buy start with S, but we don't really know the full name. So we can use the like function to search for any product that start with S within our database. Then we can now look at it and say, okay, this is what we are looking for. So for me to now search for all the products that start with S now, I'm going to use something like a wildcard here. So in that case, it's going to be in quotes. Then the first thing I'm going to do now is this. I'm going to put in my search pattern, which is S. Then after that, I'm going to put the percentage sign. So what this one is trying to do now, like bring in all the products within this table that start with what? That start with S. All the products that start with S. So that's what this one means. So if I run this now, you can see it's only returning sushi. So that is how the like works. So you might want to put, okay, probably you have an idea of what the thing starts with. Probably you know that it starts with SU. Just to like narrow it down. You can just put SU here and run it down. Also you can see it's returning sushi. So the same thing goes for this now. So you might be like, okay, probably you return you know the what you know the sorry the thing that ends the particular name you're looking for. Probably okay, for this case I can put in my operator to be the first one, and I noticed that okay the thing ends with was she, something like that. So in this case now if I run this, it's still going to return sushi for me. So that is what like is used for. Is you to search for a pattern within a column. So you can use this thing for probably the name. You have a column that contains the name of an applicant. You can say, okay, every name of applicant that start with A or that start with S or that start with this or any name of product that start with W or that start with this thing or all department that start with this. So you just have to like state in the pattern there, put in your pattern, and the like of function is going to search for everything that follows that pattern. So another thing is this, you can use the like operators with the logical operators. For example, I can say where the product name is, when the product name is like this, and you can just put it, and the price is this, or the product ID is this. So it's going to be done that also. So you can join the logical operator with the like operator and everything like that. And also this thing can be in the middle for this logical operator. Sorry, for this like operator, I can say, okay, if SH is in the middle of the product, so I can just put dollar sign percentage sign at the beginning and at the end of it and see what's going to be done for me. You can see still returning sushi. So that is how that one works. So another thing we want to talk about now is the I like. So the difference between the like and the I like is this. The like is case sensitive, while the I like is not case sensitive. For example now, if I try to like work with this and I change the S to capital letter, let's try and see how that one works. So if I try to change this thing to capital letter now, this is like capital letter S and I put maybe dollar sign here. You can see it's not returning anything because for like is case sensitive. So you have to put in the correct case there. But for I like is not case sensitive. So no matter what case you put there, it's just going to return any value that start with S uh within the table. So if I do something like select star from menu, and where product name is equal to, in this case, I'm sorry, I say equal to highlights. I'm using that thing, convert the S. So you can see now when I run this now, it returns what sushi from, because the I like is not what is not case sensitive. If I put so the next operator we want to talk about now is the in operator, the between operator, and its null operator. So how does this work now? When we're talking about in is when you're trying to match up like some list of values. For example, now when the product name is in sushi and some other thing, like let me just check out the product menu name that we have now. So you wanted to like return values, like return the rows for sushi and curry. So you can do that. So where the product name in. So instead of like writing one after the other equals to this and equals to this, you can just put in for a list of what of values. So in that case, I can just say select asterisk from menu where product name in. Then you put it in parentheses. In the first one is sushi, comma curry. So if I run this now, oh, sorry, this one has to be in column, so in quote rather. Because it is returning what only the product name of sushi and curry for me. So instead of writing equals to this and this, we can use in just to like combine the list of values you want it to return. And also we have the between. So between actually is just for like let's say in terms of like numeric values now. Okay, when a particular price is between this value and this value, I want you to return it for me. So how does that work? We can say select asterisk from menu. So all these things that we have been talking about that are used with where close, they are used to filter the rules. You can see where um price between, let's say, 9 and 12 and 12. So if I run this one now, it's going to give me the price within this range 9 and 12. And you can see we have 10 and 12. So that is how the between work. And you can also say not between this range, that is outside this range. So if I copy this one and just paste it here. So select start from menu where price not. So that's another function, not between 9 and 12. Then it's going to return only the other price, which is 15. So that is how we use the not and between and the in operator. So the other one that we also have is um, we have the what's it called now? The is not. Is not is just to check which row is empty in a column. So or which particular cell is empty in a column. So in that case, I can just say select asterisk from menu if uh that particular cell is empty from menu where probably the product name is null. Is null is a function on its own. So this one is going to like look through the columns product name and see if there's an empty cell there, then it's going to return that row. And you can see we are getting nothing. That shows that there's no row that is empty in this particular column. So these are the different basic SQL clause that we use to filter the rows. So we talk about the between, talk about the is not, we talk about the and we talk about the not, we talk about the likes, critical operators, and many more. So depending on the type of filter you want to do with your data set, that will determine which one of these things you have to use with the where clause. So the other thing that looks like it that we want to talk about now is order by. So order by is just a way of sorting your data set in a particular order. So it can be in descending order or ascending order, depending on the way you want it. So I can just do something like order by here now. So let's say, for example, I've already let me call in the sales table. It's actually quite a select star from sales. So if I run this now, you can see I have my I have my this thing arranged in one the other, like that. So I might want to return sort everything by actually it's sorted in one way or the other. So I might want to sort the product ID by uh sort the product ID in ascending order. You notice that the product ID is not in order, like it's not really in order. So if I wanted to sort it in ascending order, I can just put select start from sales order by. So order by. Then you put the name of the column you want to sort it by. So product ID. Then you can now state the way you want it to sort it. Now, by default, if you don't put anything there, it's going to sort it in ascending order. So if you don't put anything there, the default sorting is ascending order. So if I run this now, you can see it has sort all the this thing but in ascending order. So if I wanted to like now determine the order at which I want to send it, so I can put it at the end of the product ID, probably descending order or ascending order. If it's ascending order, I can put ASC, which is going to be ascending order like the default settings. And also, you can see, also I can do descending order, which is DESC. And that's that. You can see we have it here. And also you can sort based on multiple column at a time. So I can just select this. So I can say, okay, and separate it by custom type. So you can see now it's sorting based on the product ID first, then based on what? Based on the customer ID. And you can put the order at which you want to like sort it. For this one, I can say ASC, and for this one, I can say DESC. So depending on the way you want to like sort it, and you're going to sort it based on that. And and that is that about sorting order by. So order by is just for sorting. So these are now after looking at the basic SQL functions, now it's time to dive into the intermediate functions. And what are the intermediate functions we are going to be looking at? We are going to be looking at the SQL aggregate function. So what I talk about aggregate functions are the likes of count, sum, maximum, minimum, average, all those functions that return a single value. And also, we're going to be looking at the group by function. Also, we're going to be looking at the having, and also we're going to be looking at the case function. So let's dive into Postgres to see some practical aspect of this. And okay, now before I actually dive into the intermediate functions, there's some other functions I would like us to talk about. I should have made mention of that during the basic SQL function. And the function is alias. So alias. So what does alias mean and what does it do? It's just alias is just a way of renaming your output column or your results column in SQL. So for example, now like I have some outputs here, customer ID, order date, and product ID. So when I try to apply alias, I might rename this customer ID to bring out another name instead of customer ID. Probably I want to call it customer and I want to call it this one product instead of giving it product or customer ID. So that's what we mean by alias. And how does that work? So let's see some example. So for example, now you say select customer ID. Now, since I don't want this my output or my results table to return customer ID as the name of the column, so I can rename it to be okay. Customer ID has okay customer. So I'm just calling it customer or customer name. That's it. And comma. I want the order date to remain the same thing. Order date, comma. Then product ID. I want product ID to return as a product name. So that's that. So this is what we mean by alias. Alias is renaming the word, renaming the column. And this new name that we give to it is what is going to like return in the output or result column. So that's what we mean by alias. So I can just say from sales, you can see that we have customer name and product name. So aliases work in name of column, also work in name of the table. So you wanted to rename the table name also, probably when you're doing job, when we get there. We'll talk about that. So we can also use alias for that. So it's just a way of renaming a column or a table in your SQL query. So that's that. Uh, and now let's go back to intermediate SQL functions. So what are the intermediate SQL functions that we have? So the first one is uh, the aggregate functions. So intermediate. So the first one is aggregate intermediate function. I will like this aggregate function. So what are aggregate functions? So I already explained aggregate functions are these are functions that are used that return a single value. The majority of them are just count, mean, max, average, sum, and like that. So those are aggregate functions. And how does this work? For example, now let's say I have my product name. I have let me check another table. So let's say I'm checking out the price table now, for example. See let's start from men. I think I have the price level equivalent. So if I run this, now you see I have the price. I have the price here. So if I wanted to like now return the total price. So what is the total price for all our uh product or all our uh yeah for all our products? What is the total price for all the products? So I can use the sum to do things, something like that. So I can write something like this for sum. So that's the first target function I'm going to be looking at. Select our sum. Then we put in the price inside price from menu. So another thing about this is I can use alias for this whereby I select sum of price as total price and see where it comes in. As total price, select sum of price as total price from menu and see what this one is going to return. So it's going to return the total price. So it's adding up all the price that we have in the menu table and give it as a total. So that's an aggregate function in this. It is a very good function, example of what of an aggregate function. So another thing that we have for the aggregate function is we can also use sum. If also we talk about sum, we can also use count. So I can say, okay, what is the count? What is the total number of products that we have that we are selling actually? I can just select product, select want to know the total number of products we're selling. Imagine that. Let me run the menu so that you can see. Just to know the total number of products we have in our menu table. So select count. So I can use count for this. So I'm actually just counting the number of times like because so count product name as total products from menu. So we are this will give me the total number of products that we are selling in our restaurant. So it's three. Now there's products, there is counts and there is count distinct or distinct counts. We talked about that the other time in Excel, and we also talked about Power BI. So there's counts and there's distinct counts. So distinct counts is just giving the number of unique products that we have. So for example, like I have a table that has sushi more than once, and it has maybe ramen more than one or curry more than one. So that is that. So for us to just get the number of unique product that we are selling, so we can use distinct counts for that. So let's try some example here. I think for let's check sales. We have something on sales that actually can give us shed more light on that. So start from sales just to see the sales thing. Notice that for this particular customer now we have the customer ID and we have like the customers that are repeated twice, more than once. We have customer A coming back to buy our products more than once. So we wanted to know the total number of what is the total number of customer that we have. Yes, I want to know the total number of customers. So I can use count for that. So if I use normal count, for example now, normal count, total number of uh customers. So if I say customer ID as total customer from uh what's that? Select count customer as total customer from sales. If I run this now, it's giving me 15 customers. So that's count. Count is just counting the number of like concurrencies, like number of currencies within the what within the table. So how many values do we have in this customer table? So customer ID column. That's what it's counting. But this is not the total number of customers that we have. So what I want is the total number of unique customers that we have. And that's what I want you to return for me. So that when you're using count and count distinct, depending on the question you're trying to ask, you have to like know which one to use, whether you're using count or you're using count distinct. For this case now, I want to know the total number of customer, like unique customers that we have so far. So in that case, I can just select distinct distinct count now. And I put customer ID as total customer. If I run this now, okay. No mistake here. Okay, I think this distinct to be inside. This distinct has to be inside this customer ID. So yeah, it should be like this. Yeah, so we have three customers in total. So you have to put it distinct before you name of the column you're trying to get the count of. So that's the difference between distinct and ordinary count. So this one is returning our distinct customer, which is we only have three customers so far. So that is that for count. Now we also have we have counts, we have talk about count, talk about sum. We have min and max. Now, min and maximum is just to return the minimum value and the maximum value within a particular table. So in this case, I'm going to be using the menu table because it contains the price. So I want to return the minimum price and the maximum price that we have in our menu table. So that will give us that. So in that case, now I'm going to be using select um min for price as let's go price from six. No, for men. So that's this thing. So if I run this, can see the minimum price is 10. So now I can also just write, copy this one and repeat it to get it for maximum price. So maximum price and maximum price is just is 50. So those are some basic things that we have in this case. So we also have average for our gate functions. We have average. So I can say select Average is just to give you the average of it. So average. So the average is AVG actually. Average of price. What is the average price that we have? Essentially maths. So the average price now like as AVG price from menu. So you can see this is the average price of value. And another thing you can actually do with this average price, you notice that the average price is so long, it's so long that you can see so long. I can actually round up this value. So for me to round up the value in probably maybe two decimal places or one decimal places, I can actually do that using the round. So how do you round up? So this is another function that we need to like talk about now. So to round up a value in Postgres, how does that work? So it's going to be round. I'll just I'll put this value in bracket like this. So it's going to be, let me just put this. So it's a random value clearly round. So you play brackets. So round. So first, when you're rounding now, the first thing is like the value that you want to round up, you put it in the bracket first, then comma. Now you put the number of like where do you want to round it up to? Is it like two decimal places or three decimal places? So in this case, let me just put two decimal places. So round up this one to two decimal places. So in that case now, as average this thing. So if I run this, you can see I have 12.33. So that is one. So this one can be one decimal place. So decimal place just to like give me something here. And it can be just whole number. Let's just one is okay. Nearest number. So that is it for rounding up values in this group. So we've talked about some of the basic aggregate functions that we have. Now let's go to the next one, which is the group by. So what does the group by do? How does it work in this thing? Now you notice that when since we started these aggregate functions, I've just been returning a single value. Like, okay, what is the total sales? What is the total this? What is the total that? Just a single value. Now, if I wanted to now aggregate this, use this aggregate function on a particular variable, I want to aggregate on a variable. Now, I want to, okay, what is total sales by this, total sales by this? So, first of all, let me check a column. Let me check a table that I have here that can do that. Because we have something like this seems okay. So we don't have a table that actually I can aggregate on here. So I'm going to borrow a table from this. Mm. Now, the next function we have talked about now is group by. So we've talked about aggregate functions. Now we've seen the aggregate functions in action. So, and when we talk about group by is actually used with aggregate function. Let's say, for example, let me just run some function here, like, okay, I want to know the total number of transactions, transaction counts that we made so far. So I can just write select count asterisk, that is like count number of everything, rows that we have there. And this will give me total number of transactions we made so far. Now, if I want to now know the total transaction count that individual customer has actually made, okay, how many times has this customer visit us? Many times has this customer visit us? Now, I'm going to be aggregating the total transaction count based on the customer. You understand now? So whenever you are aggregating a value based on a variable name, then you have to use group by. So this is an example of what I'm saying now. So select customer ID, which is you have to put in the value that you want to aggregate on first, then comma. So what value do you want to aggregate? Then I want to aggregate the counts. That's total number of transaction counts. Now, so this one is going to give me the total number of transactions made by each customer. So for us to now for this one to work now, after stating the aggregate function and so after stating the aggregate variable and the value that you want to aggregate, then the next one that comes after this one is the group by. So because if I run this thing like this, it's not going to give me any result. So what this one is asking is that okay, what variable do you want to aggregate this count on? So I'm going to put in aggregate it based on customer ID. So group by customer ID. If I run this now, that one is going to give me total number of transactions. Transaction can be made by each customer. You can see customer B has visited us 6 times, customer C has visited us 3 times, and customer A has visited us 6 times. So that is actually aggregate function. So we're aggregating the count of transaction based on the customer ID. So that's just how this group by works. So if I'm actually aggregating based on maybe customer, sorry, total amount or price, I can just put sum of price here or average price or anything like that, just for me to get an idea for individual customer. So another thing we like to talk about now is now I want to also get an idea of okay, for each customer, how many times have they buy each of our products? We have a product ID here now. So customer for each customer, how many times have they bought each of our customer? So this one is actually giving us the total number of transactions can be made so far. We wanted to see the total number of transactions based on our product. So in that case, I'm going to be doing select customer ID from our product ID. Then I'm going to use a count now. So after it, from save. So now, one thing about this group, one thing about beautiful functions like this, whenever you are calculating a variable, now the number of columns, like the number of the columns that you stated before the aggregate function, has to come in the group by. I'm saying select customer ID and product ID. That means I want to aggregate the total transaction based on customer ID and product ID. And these two columns that actually you stated before the uh, aggregate value has to come into the group by. So from sales, then so if I said okay, group by customer ID now. So this thing is telling me that okay, you need to put uh a product ID. So the number of columns that is there, if you put in 3 columns before this counts or before any form of aggregate value, then you have to put in all those variables in the group by. So I'm saying okay, group by customer ID, then by product ID. So that's how it works. So you run this and you can see now. So these are the products. So for customer B has actually uh purchased this product at the 2 times. Customer A purchased 3 times and customer A also purchases this thing 2 times. So he has broken down the total number of transactions based on product for each customer. And we can see here now. So A actually bought customer B has bought products 2 times. Customer A has bought products 3 times, and customer A has bought product one time like that. And so that is how the group by function works. Now, the next one we want to talk about now is um halving. Halving. Halving is just like a form of like a weird clause when you're trying to filter your value. You're trying to filter your aggregate value based on the particular criteria. So let's say, for example, now let's just use this one I have here. For example, let's say we are running a promo now, or we want to give a discount or anything to our customers. And but our criteria for giving out the promo or discount is customers that actually like transact with us more than 4 times. So customer that has transacted with us more than 4 times will actually come to our restaurant to buy stuff more than 4 times. Those are the people that we are giving the discount or uh what's it called? Or gifts to. Now to do that, for me to now find out the customers that have actually transacted more than 4 times, this one is actually giving me the total number of times that individual customers have transacted with us, which is for customer A 6 times, for customer C 3 times, customer A 6 times too. So I just want to filter out those customers that actually met the criteria instead of getting all the results. So in that case, I'll have to use Avin. So Avin is used to filter for aggregate function. So I can't use where clause in this case now. So the difference between the where clause is this. So where clause is actually used on the row level when you're trying to filter a particular row that met this particular criteria. But when you're coming to having is used for aggregate functions. When you've aggregated the value and the value that made the criteria. So that's when you use having. So in that case, select customer ID count from sales do by customer ID. Having now this is having count of customer, which is count of transaction greater than 4 or greater than or equals to 4. Like customers that transaction more than 4 times. So 4 to more than 4 times, rather. So that's that. So if I run this one is giving me only the customer that has transacted with us 4 times or more, 4 or more than 4 times. Let's just say customer that transacts with us more than 4 times. So I'm just going to run this one now. So this one is giving us customer that has actually transacted with us more than 4 times. No, he has removed the other one, which is customer. So actually, he has only transacted 3 times. So these are the customer customer information I'm looking for that we wanted to give to the discounts to all the promo thing that we're running. So that is how the having works. Having actually works with what with aggregate functions. So the next function we want to talk about is case function. So case function is just like a conditional statement in SQL, like a conditional statement in SQL. So that's when we use the case function for. So a very good example of how case function works is this. You notice that when I actually run, excuse me, so when I run this sales table, select star from sales, just to show something here. Now the sales table. Is that we notice that we have the product ID here, and we have the customer and the customer ID and the product ID. Now I want to write a conditional statement whereby to return a table that is going to contain the name of the product instead of the product ID. Remember that I already have a column which is product. What's that name of product? Menu that contains the name of each product. So let's just say select from menu. If I run this now, you can see I actually have the name of each product ID. So for product ID 1, the name of the product name is sushi. For product ID 2, the name is curry. For product ID 3, the name is ramen. So for this sales now, I want to return a sales table that is going to show me a column that contains the product name. For example, now on the sales table, I don't have any column that's showing the product name here. I don't yet have the product ID. So what I want to do now is this. I want to create a column, add a column to this sales table that is going to contain the product name based on the product ID. Now for that, I can use a conditional statement to add that thing. And how does this work? So to use a conditional statement in Excel, so first thing I want to do is I select, since I want to return the whole column name, or if I don't want to return, let me return all the column so that we can see that it's actually correct. Select star now. So what I want to do, like return the all the column name. Now, and I want to add me a new column now, which is the product name column to the sales. So I'm going to put comma. So from this comma, this is where my case is going to start from. So I'm going to start with case. So after typing the case, so the next thing that is going to like come in is the when function. Case when, that is, you're starting with case. If this one is like if the product ID, let me just put the product ID colon there. If the product ID is equal to what? If the product ID is equal to 1, then return, I think that one is sushi. Sushi, Korean ramen, I think. So this one is sushi. Then return sushi. So the next one, you have to put, it comes to the next one. Again, is when was actually writing a condition for like 3 products. So when product ID is equal to 2, then what do you want it to return? Just like conditional statement if, then return I think this one is called repeat. So, and the last one. So when, so for these things, actually it's just like three products that we have there. It's just three products that we have there. So we can just put health. We actually state the condition. So when the product that is equal to one, return sushi. When the product that is equals to what, two, return curry. Health, return what? Return else return ramen, which is the last one because we don't have more than three products idea. Else. So I can just put it else. You can see this one. Okay, like else. Then you put ramen there. Yes, because I just put it there. Ramen. So that's that. So after you type in your condition, so this is my conditioner. So I want to create a new column that is going to put give me the product name based on the product ID. So that's how we are using the conditional statement for that. So when you are done with your conditional statement, you're writing your uh yeah, your conditional statements, you just have to put end here. End. So that's that. And you can call this one as product underscore name. You understand now? As product underscore name from sales table. So if I run this now, you can see now I'm getting a new column for it, which is this. You can see for product ID one is returning sushi, for the two is returning three, and for two is returning curry, and for three is returning ramen. And so this is how you can use this conditional case statement in SQL. So you can use this one to actually transform and manipulate your data, manipulate your data within SQL also. So the major thing is just to understand the way it works, and you can use it to manipulate your data in any way you prefer. So that's that for the case uh, function in SQL.